Hey, welcome back to Driver 88. Now, I'm quite an Audi fan. I've owned a few of them in my time, and I've noticed that much like the R8, Audi is kind of lacking a number of S and RS models on their lineup. One of my favorite S and RS cars of all time is the original B5 S4 RS4. And that car is sadly no longer, but it all has been amalgamated into a new S5 in Sportback, sedan version, as well as a wagon. We're going to drive one today, but it has pretty tough competition against it. The BMW 340i, or M340i, has been, I think, the pick for good reason for a long time. So we'll see today if it has a chance. Let's find an S5. So the all-new S5, we've got a brand new platform, we've got a new interior, we've got a new EV system, and a much bigger car than before. This car is one whole foot longer than the original S4 back in 1997. It's also 10 centimeters longer than the previous S5 Sportback, but it is a fair bit heavier. Notably, 200 kilos heavier than the last S5 Sportback. I think it's a relatively handsome looking car though. Everyone has pretty strong opinions about new design these days, and they get really anxious or unhappy about new design, and then they kind of get used to it. There's a whole bunch of things that I like. There's a few things that I don't on the interior from a design perspective, but it is a pretty good looking thing. So before we take it for a drive, let's talk about this new hybrid setup. You can tell it's hybrid in green, comes with a free leaf. This engine has been around for some time, but now we have an extra 24 horsepower or so, and better fuel economy, 7.1 litres on average, which is really quite decent for a large sedan slash sportback. But I have some gripes about this new engine. Let's start with 362 horsepower and 550 newton meters, a decent amount of torque, but that horsepower is less than the M340i from 6 years ago. In fact, it's not even more than the RS4 from 1999. The straight line performance is okay at 4.5, but it kind of runs out of juice. By the time you get to the end of the quarter mile, it's 12.7. Those two figures sound eerily similar to the previous S5 Sportback. In fact, they're practically the same. So despite the fact that we have a new EV system, we don't really have a lot more performance. That also continues on the track. Now, I understand that S4s aren't really track-focused cars. They're cars that you drive daily, and they're kind of understated sleepers with a decent amount of power. But this thing is 2.9 seconds slower than the M340i at the Hockenheim GP track, and that is a lot. But maybe the numbers don't tell you everything. Often with Audis, they understate their numbers, and they're much faster than you think. They're going to need to be, but we'll take it for a drive in a second. But before we do that, let's check out this new interior. So we have new touch door handles, and everything feels relatively familiar in here, but this new expansive screen that all brands seem to be doing just takes over the whole interior. I'm not a big fan of all this piano black everywhere. Everyone has been going on about how Audi has too much piano black in their cars, and they don't seem to be listening to us because it's easy to scratch all this business and it looks quite dusty within no time. We still have a number of touch buttons on the steering wheel. Generally, the quality feels up to par of previous models. Having Alcantara is nice on the seats, but you don't want it, I think, near the door handles where you're just going to wear it really quickly. Other than that, relatively minimalist. We've got our charging pad and our Type-Cs and our drive select here. We've found it really easy to get used to over time, and it is quite comfortable to sit in. The rear seats have quite a lovely Bang & Olufsen sound system. You've got Type-C, and thankfully my head is not hitting the roof. A lot of modern sportback type sedans these days, my head hits the roof, not in this one. This car is at least a couple of centimeters taller than the previous S5 Sportback. Now you can tell from the rear the Audi e-tron inspired design here with these huge rear LEDs. We also have a decent amount of space with our Sportback. I personally prefer the wagon style than this sedan though, but it's still a rather huge amount of space. Now when it comes to money, The new S5 against the C43 and the M340. This starts at $126,000 Australian before options, $129,000 for the M340 and $132,000 for the 4-cylinder hybrid C43. However, a slightly used one of these in the current year, same with the M340, you can get for a fair discount. So I'll leave a link in the description if you're after one of those cars from our friends at Cavallo Prestige. Now you notice the side profile we were just mentioning between us, it does kind of look a fair bit like the BMW, right? This one comes with the smaller 19-inch 40 size tires, and they look rather large these days. Who would have thought that 19-inch rims look small? Everything's just gotten so enormous. It's 245 all around, which also sounds pretty narrow when I think about sports cars these days. Let's give it a listen, because she is rather quiet, and then take it for a drive. Firstly, these screens in front of me are arguably larger than they kind of need to be. They take up so much space. All your aids are very, very useful. The reversing camera, of course, is very, very good. Your rear visibility is maybe not as good as I'd hoped. Otherwise, you shouldn't have too many issues though. There is a bit of a tech overload here. One of the things that stood out to me is our front left tire has just lost a little bit of pressure, and I wanted to know by how much. And unless I'm mistaken, I seemingly can't scroll to the PSI to know exactly how much pressure I've lost. So I don't know if I've lost like a little bit and it's fine, or lost a ton and I need to get to a petrol station ASAP. This car is very quiet, NVH is quite good. You turn on the car and of course we start off in EV mode, of which case we have, I believe, about 70 kilometers of range. But that's not the sort of thing that I usually do. I feel like there should be more focus on performance. Things that have stood out to me today, of course, the torque is really, really good from low down. You've got all of it from 1700 RPM, but through the corners you can definitely feel that 1950 kilos of weight plus 2 people. It's interesting that they've decided to go back to a 7-speed dual clutch where they used to have the 8-speed ZF, which everyone uses. Speaking of the gearbox, responsiveness is great. I don't really like the feel of these plastic paddles. They feel okay, but they don't feel particularly premium. The action is very short. Steering wheel feels good in the hands, at least it's not 7 kilometers wide like the BMWs. These seats are kind of comfortable enough. They don't have a lot of side support, but they're decent. Ultimately, this is fulfilling the sort of mid-luxury, little bit of sportiness, understated figure that it says on the tin. But I'm left a little bit disappointed. It's by no means slow, but I feel like it needs just a little bit more character or something like that. I like the way it takes bumps, and the body roll is quite nice and progressive, but yeah, there's just not much sound, not much character going on, but maybe that's the point that I'm missing. So when we want to turn things up to dynamic mode, we instantly get a bit of that false drony noise coming into the cabin. Things tighten up a bit. The steering gets sort of numb, but still heavier. It's a little bit underwhelming. It's not slow. It's definitely not slow. This 7-speed dual clutch has definitely got faster over the years. It feels a fair bit faster than my RS3. But yeah, a little numb. I mean, I understand this is an Audi and I'm a big Audi fan, but my, I guess, overall interpretation of this, if you're looking at this sort of segment of car, whether it's the wagon or the sportback / sedan, I think I would pick a 340 xDrive. And that's from someone who's never been a big BMW person. I think I would pick the 340 xDrive. Just because I think on average, that engine's going to be more reliable. If you want to tune it, you'll get a massive difference in performance. A lot of the sort of interior tech and stuff is about the same with this dual landscape screen. When it comes to looks, I mean, it's going to be up to the person. I think this is a really good looking car overall, but yeah, I think it's got to be 340 for me. And when it comes to C43, you'll have to forgive me, it hasn't really crossed my mind that much. So if you're interested in this car or any of the other cars that were mentioned below, I'll put a link in the comments section and you can check out Cavallo Prestige's stock. Otherwise, this is Driver 88. Let us know what sort of other new cars coming to the market we should also get behind the wheel of. I'll see you next time.